McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titan! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, how's everyone doing? Today, I have a special guest, a wide receiver who was drafted by not the Houston Oilers, the Tennessee Oilers, 16th overall in the 1998 draft. We had the Music City Miracle himself. We got Dr. Kevin Dyson. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, what's going on, brother? I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no problem. Again, it's always a blast to have, especially I've been having really big success and having wide receivers on the show. I had Chris Sanders before, Justin McCarrons, Drew Bennett. So this is a nice, top cherry on the top. We got Mr. Music City Miracle himself, which obviously we'll talk about later. But again, thank you so much for coming on, man. I do appreciate it.
Man, absolutely, man. It's funny. All those guys you mentioned back me up. So that means I'm either old or something. I don't know.
Well, like I said, they've talked about you in the show, which is a good thing, looking up to you and stuff like that, because, you were the top wide receiver. And it's always interesting to hear their stories, and it's kind of to get their perspective on playing with a Steve McNair or a Billy Volek and stuff like that, different quarterbacks, and kind of how they perceive and how they see it. So it's always interesting to hear. Never get tired of hearing Titan stories, especially from legendary Titans. So it's good, man.
Absolutely.
Now, how was growing up? You grew up in Utah, no?
Yeah. Originally from Las Vegas, but pretty much in Utah most of my life.
Okay.
Most of my young life. I've been in Tennessee a lot longer than I was Utah or Las Vegas. So, But yeah, I spent most of my adolescent, secondary years life in Utah. So that was a little different, especially coming from Vegas.
Definitely. And now growing up, was there any sports that that wasn't football that you played, or you kind of like dabbed in everything? How did that work out, man?
I played everything, man. Athlete. I played football, basketball, soccer, baseball. Soccer was kind of my main thing in the beginning, and I gravitated to basketball. Basketball is my favorite sport, still is. And football just kind of happened, just being an athlete, being around the family. My uncle, who is a big-time athlete, was a football player. My dad was a football player. So football was kind of in the blood, but basketball was the dream, right? Like I wanted to go to the NBA. I told my mom I was going to the NBA. I was going to buy her house. Once I got there, got the money. But, you get through high school and I was doing the whole AAU circuits, getting people noticing me, getting people talking to me, coaches asking about me. And, football season coming around my senior year, and I had some letters, Kansas State, Washington State, Utah State, BYU, and, of course, smaller schools along the way as well, Hawaii, and most of it obviously on the West Coast, being in Utah. And I still wanted that basketball scholarship. But, raised by a single mom, we didn't have a whole lot growing up. And football, we had some success. I had a lot of success. We won state championship. I started making my name for myself as a DB, no less, throughout that playoff run in high school. And all of a sudden, everybody wanted me to come visit, and I started getting offers, like official offers, which is a lot different than they do now. But I got some official offers, and I was like, in most schools, I wouldn't say most, all of them, I'd ask, hey, if I come to football, can I play basketball too? And of course, all of them tell you yes, because they want you to come to school like Arizona State, Utah State, BYU, all of them. They say, oh yeah, come on. And so I got to get the money, right? I had to get the scholarship, and so I committed to Utah, then decommitted, then committed to Arizona State, and but my mom raised, she's a single mom raising boys. I'm the oldest of four, raising three boys and a girl. She they called. When I called Utah, tell them I wasn't coming. They said, "Why? You are number one in-state recruit, et cetera, et cetera." You know, and they said, "Well, come talk to us." And I was like, "No, I made my decision. I want to get out of Utah, get back in the desert. You know, get away from the snow. I wasn't a skier, and I mean that's not the only reason, but that's one of them." And my mom's like, "You know, you committed to them first. You need to be a man." I wasn't even 18 at the time, but you need to go tell them why. Tell them your reasons. And so they invited me up on campus, and I went up on campus, and I thought I was going up there to tell them I'm going to Arizona State, and they brought in big guns and people that told me the kind of impact I can have on the program, and not just immediate, long term, building that thing up. They brought in some really heavy hitters in the community and in the school, and I left there, a 17-year-old kid, confused, man. I didn't know what to do. So back then, they gave you a physical copy. They mailed you a physical copy of your scholarship offer, and you faxed it in and then sent them the original copy later.
Okay.
And it was signing day, 1993, February 1993. I had both papers in my possession, and I still think I got the Arizona State one at home. But ultimately, I went with my first commitment. I said I committed them first. They was with me with the whole time. When I was at Arizona State in my visit, they didn't immediately offer me. They said, we got to see what's up on some scholarships. And that's what ultimately led me to committing to Utah in the first place, because I didn't get that offer like everywhere else.
Gotcha.
So I thought, oh, then they're going to get this kid from Utah. They offered the other kid from California. If you don't take it, then they come to me. Yeah. But I learned later that wasn't the case. They was a graduating senior that they had to get the release from his scholarship, the extra scholarship, and then they was able to offer me or something to that effect. And that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to be in the Pac-10 at the time, and again, wanted to get out of Utah. But I had both papers sitting right there that February, and I was like, man, they've been recruiting me since day one. They were loyal to me. They offered me join. They've proven they really wanted me, and I went my first commitment. And my first game, my freshman year, guess where we go? Tempe, Arizona, play Arizona State. Jake Plummer comes off the bench and plays a little bit, and he ends up going to the Rose Bowl that year and everything else, and we lost 38-0. I said, golly, did I make the right choice? But it ended up working out for me.
There you go, man. I mean, it's life lessons, right? And that kind of that character trait, you don't really see that much anymore. Is that, hey, you know, I gave my word to this. I'm a man to my word, and I'm gonna stick to it. That's that's awesome, man. But
yeah.
And it might have been a little joke here and there. I mean, you guys lost, but hey, it is what it is. And I think you did all right, man. I think you did a good choice still.
Yeah, it worked out for me, man. It's funny how things work out. Like literally, my freshman year, we go to Arizona State. There's 80,000 strong in the stadium, right? And it's Pac-12, and we just get demolished. It's not even close. Now, we ended up being pretty good, going to a bowl game. Jamal Anderson was on that team. We beat USC in the Freedom Bowl that year. So it was, you know, we had a pretty good team. Eventually got it put together. But at that time, man, it's 18-year-old kid. You just like, God, did I make the right choice? Did I make the right choice? And even still, a lot of people don't realize I wasn't even a receiver when I came out of high school. I played a little bit of receiver. I was recruited to be a DB. I was recruited to play corner or free safety, and that's what I would have been had I go to Arizona State. I would have been a corner probably, and who knows what would have happened? You know, would I have been a first round pick at corner? I like to believe so. I like to believe I had that skill set as well, but you never know how my life would have changed.
So, what made you transition to eventually be wide receiver? Was it like the coaches, or is that a personal choice, or what happened?
So when I got to Utah, the guy who was recruiting me, Fred Graves, he actually coached for the Titans for a few years as well. Okay. After I was done, but he was the one recruiting me in high school, and he's a receivers coach, obviously, and he saw the talent in me. And I would say, I went like Arizona State and Washington State and all the other schools. They said, you know, you might be a pretty good college wide receiver too, but we need you for DB. And so my freshman year, I was start off playing wide receiver. We had a lot of injuries at DB. So then they moved me back over. I was doing both for a little while. I was playing corner and wide receiver. You know, one practice I'd be receiver, half the practice I'd be receiver, the other practice I'd be corner. And so we had a lot of injuries, but I was redshirted. And so as it was told to me, Fred Graves, who was the receivers coach, who was one who recruited me, he said, look, I can use him for the next 4 years. So if y'all not going to use him, if you're just going to use him for 1 or 2 games until everybody gets back off the injuries, then leave him alone because I can use him. Like he can really play for me. And they said okay, and they left me alone, and then I became a full-time receiver. But then fast forward, Fred Whittingham, who's now the head coach at University of Utah, he came over to Utah after my freshman year. Well, he had recruited me in high school as well when he was at Idaho State. And he came over, and when he became the defense coordinator, taking over for his dad, who later passed away, but when he took over his dad, he approached me about playing both sides. So he wanted me to play. He said, man, look, I just have you locked down, the number one receiver will play coverage over you, but I want you to play both sides. So I asked Fred Graves and Ron McBride if they'll let me do it. And they were like, man, that's too much. I was the holder for kicker. I played all 5 receiver spots. I was a punt returner, kick returner, captain. I guess they figured like that's too much. But I just wanted to play, and I felt like if I could help the team win, I wanted to. And my regret and all that is I didn't push it. I wish I would have pushed that envelope a little bit. Said, man, let me try it. If it don't work, if I'm too wore out on offense, I can't do it, then I'll stop. But I wish I would have pushed that a little bit just to see if I had that ability. And speaking of, Charles Woodson was also in the '98 draft, and he did it on a small scale. And I like to believe I could have done the same.
Oh, okay. And that's crazy just to think about. So when you were saying that you didn't push it, like you didn't just kind of proceed, like, like, hey guys, like let me try it out. You kind of just like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like you just kind of did that.
I didn't, man. That's a regret I have. I wish I would have pushed that because, obviously I ended up being a first round pick as a receiver, and I had enough talent to have that happen. But I really felt like my talent and skill, I could have played DB. Me and Blaine Bishop, we talk about this all the time. He's like, man, you were smooth enough. I think you could have played corner in the National Football League or safety. Although I don't want to tackle some of these backs that got run out the backfield. I ain't tackling King Henry. I'm just going to tell you that now. But yeah, man, I like to believe I was athletic enough to do it. Now, it's a different mentality, obviously. I'd have to switch hats, if you will, because offense is a different mentality than defense. But I regret not really pushing it, at least for, even on small scale, even if it's just, as we were talking, it was just going to be on third down
just a player or two, right?
distant coverages, put me on the number one guy, play coverage behind me. And I was like, that's not a lot when I think of it. And I really wish I would have pushed it, but I get it. I was, like I said, I was the holder. I was punt returning. I was kick returning. And then I played all 5 receiver positions. When I say all 5, like we went empty set, I could be the number 3 receiver. I could be, I did it all when in reference to receiver play at the University of Utah. And so I get it, but I really wish, I feel like I was good a shape I was in, everything that I did, I really feel like I could have done it and been effective, but that's on me.
Now, you never thought about going back eventually to DB, like throughout your career, maybe like once you got into the NFL, was there any like, hey, maybe I should play DB, or it was just like wide receiver, that was it?
Great question. Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that. Again, I'll mention Blaine Bishop. Me and him have talked about it, and I said, man, I've seen it happen with other players, and how my career went with the injuries and the things of that nature, and people thinking I couldn't play at the level I was prior to the injuries. I wish I would have taken the opportunity to switch over and show them that I can play defense and still extend my career and play and see it, because I feel like I was athletic enough to do it and just to extend my career and see. But part of me wishes I would have maybe transitioned and saw if I could. And been an effective defender in the National Football League. I feel like athletically I would have been fine, but there would have been a lot of a learning curve for me to be an effective and even work my way up to be a starter in the National Football League from the defense side of the ball. Athletically, obviously, if you make it to that level athletically, you can do it. I tell people all the time, Samari Rowe probably would have been a heck of a receiver in the National Football League. He had great hands, good instincts about him. He's probably good after the catches in him, and Samari was a good athlete. But it would have been a learning curve because he had been DB for so long that he had learned. And the same thing would have been for me.
Gotcha. And it's almost like those positions are, obviously there's a learning curve, but they're almost like very, I guess, almost skill set, right? You got to be good. You have to have a nose for the ball. You have to have good hands. You got to be quick, because like I said, what's the gentleman that was in the Cowboys? Diggs.
Yeah.
He's the same thing. He transitioned from a wide receiver to, and he's doing good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and now the corners, and they started about when I was playing 15, 20 years ago. The corners are getting bigger. Charles Woodson was a big corner at 6'1". We were the same size, 6'1", 205, 210-pound corner. Then he moved from corner to free safety towards the end of his career when he couldn't move the same. And it would probably been somewhat similar for myself. You probably moved to free safety or nickel or something to that effect,
So once you got to the Tennessee Titans, right? Obviously the draft is completely different back in the day compared to now, right?
Right.
It's I would say it's kind of like glamorous. It's almost like a TV show, right? That's what they do now. How was that process? Getting picked up by the Tennessee Titans. Did you have contact with them before? Did you know at all? Was there a couple teams that you were interested, or was it kind of just like, hey, whoever picks me, I'm ready to play?
Well, definitely, I was just whoever picks me, I'm ready to play. I just wanted my name to be called. After my workouts and my senior year, the conversation was I was anywhere from 1 to 3 as far as my ranking as receivers in my draft. More or less, I was number 2 behind Randy Moss. So most people had me 2. A couple had me at 1. Most people had me at 2. Some had me at 3 as far as receivers available in that draft class. And I was told by a GM that I would be anywhere, probably they could see me going anywhere from 8 to 16. And I ended up being number 16. And that person was the person who picked me at 16. He's like, I've been around this draft a lot. I can see you going anywhere from 8 to 16. Well, and obviously I was drafted before Randy, but Randy was always in that top 5. And a lot of people had me in that next 5. So anywhere from 8 to 12, 10 to 15, or 16, where I end up going. And I joke, I said, Randy Moss cost me money. You know what I mean? Because if he goes higher, if he goes where he's supposed to go, I go up higher. And I do know there was some deals trying to be made to get me at 10. I believe the Giants were trying to get me at 10. They tried to work a trade with Baltimore at 10. Dallas had 8. They were thinking about drafting me and Moss, but from what I understand, Moss was their guy. They were going to pick him the night before that, so they settled on at 8. And whatever reason, I forget the coach was at the time, he came back and changed his mind, and I think they drafted Bonnie Holiday. And then I do know, like I said, Baltimore and New York Giants were in trade talks for me at 10 to go at 10. But then, I guess when Moss dropped, I guess that should surprise everybody, because everybody was worried about drafting Moss because the whole character thing, not the talent thing, which obviously he proved everybody wrong.
Yep.
So they figured they can get another receiver later. And then 11 was Philly, I thought might go. 12 was Atlanta, I thought I might go. 14 and 15 was Cincinnati, I thought I might go. And then 16 came. And each of those teams that passed up on me and Randy end up drafting a receiver in the 2nd and 3rd round. And I can probably tell you every one of them too, but that's just goes to show you kind of how the draft goes. You draft a guy high enough, people are like, oh, I got to give me a good one. So that pulls you up. So Randy cost a lot of people money by him dropping it. Fortunately, I'm the one drafted before him, but I've been joking about it for 20-something years. Like that dude cost me money because, not that being drafted 16 was anything to slouch over. Don't get me wrong. I'm very appreciative. And obviously I'm even talking to you because of my time here in Tennessee, but had he gone when he was gone, that's a couple more $1 million in my pocket, man.
That's great. Do you still talk to Randy Moss on a regular basis, or no, just from time to time and stuff like
just
that?
Just time to time, man. We're running to him like the draft things or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. He's a Hall of Famer, man. He's famous. I'm just another guy, man. I'm just an educator, man. He's a Hall of Fame famous
dude. No, don't say that about yourself.
No, but he's man, he is who he is, man. He's a unique talent. And again, the NFL's made up of, I think it's been like 25,000 ever in 100 years of professional football, right? 25,000 people. Think about that, in 100 years of football. Okay. And there's only like 1,500 of those have made it to the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And so there's not that many guys that have that level of play, skill. Where a lot of us are just good football players, but very few are lucky enough to not to have the injuries. Now, there's some of us that we definitely have the talent to be Hall of Famers, but you got to have some luck with the injuries. You got to be in the right team, right system. You got to win championships for a lot of respect, especially for quarterbacks. So there's a lot that goes into that. But there's a lot of guys that are just role players that help those Hall of Famers get to where they are. And so it wasn't a card for me to fulfill that destiny. It was just, I had a lot of injuries, unfortunately, and it kind of forced me out a little early. I feel like for my career, I left a lot of meat on the bone, because I felt like my talent I was never able to reach my full potential on my talent, because every time I start making a step forward, I had an injury. Mm-hmm. And then I overcome that, and then I'd have another injury. And so obviously it was a frustrating end to my career. Whether I was ever been a Hall of Famer, probably not. But I think I could have been way more productive than I was.
But like I said, I mean, everyone in Tennessee loves you, like regardless. We know you gave it your all, regardless. I mean, yeah, injuries is part of the game, unfortunately, but we still love you, man. Obviously, you can tell you're still in Tennessee. You love it. There's a lot of players stay in Tennessee after they're done with their careers, because it's a nice spot to live in, right?
Well, and I say this, man, I mentioned it. Not everybody's Hall of Famer, right? There's only 1,500 of them or so in the National Football Hall of Fame. Most of us are role players. And so for me to actually be able to have people recognize me 20 some odd years later, still talking about that play, have something that people still talking about 20 years later. So my time is not forgotten. The sweat, tear, the pain, I'm going to have knee surgery. I'm going to have knee replacement because of my time in the NFL, right? To have that still 20 years later, man, that's huge, man, because there's a lot of guys that I've played with and against and come before me and come after me that people don't even know. Yeah. And they help these Hall of Famers get to that level, help them become Hall of Famers. They fulfilled their role for those Hall of Famers. And, fortunately, I was a role player, and to not be, quote unquote, forgotten, even after all these years because of something I was a part of, man, it's humbling, and I'm definitely appreciative of it.
Yeah, definitely, 100%, man. Like I said, and we'll talk to about that good stuff later. But my question to you was, who was the first player you interacted with the Tennessee Titans, if you remember?
Oh man, well, probably the first would have been, of course, like Samari Rolle and Kevin Long. That was my draft class. Okay. And one guy in particular was Perry Phoenix. He was a free agent pick. He actually, I let him stay with me in my apartment that first few months of the season, or really not the whole season, because he was a free agent, didn't have a place to stay. I had my own spot, and he didn't know if he was going to be, because he's a free agent. So I let him stay with me rent free. So he was one I probably connected with. The first of our rookie class was Perry. And then as far as like veterans, and he's still one of my best friends to this day, Joey Kent, Isaac Bird, Derek Mason, another good friend, that whole locker room, Chris Sanders, because those are the guys that I was watching every day, learning from. They were receivers in that room with me all the time. And of course, Yancey Thigpen was the other one. So, and Willie Davis was another guy too. So those, you kind of gravitate to the guys in your position because you spend so much time with them, from drill to drill, team period to team period, meetings to meeting. And so that was kind of my crew right there. But and all of them, man, even though I was the new guy, and some of them were going to their second year, and here I am, the first round pick, new guy, and I'm basically here to take or compete for one of your spots, because y'all just got here just a year before me, and yet they drafted another receiver in the first round. You got to see what the first rounder is able to do, right? So essentially, they know I'm going to play, because they're not going to just have a first rounder sitting on the bench. And so, but none of them made me feel like that I wasn't worthy of being a starter or had resentment towards me for that. Man, we all just kind of worked together and bonded. And it was a cool little meeting room fit, locker room fit for that group of kids. We were grown men, group of players. It was a good little fit, man. And all of us have remained friends for the most part since. We talk every now and then, not every day or anything like, but it's been good. And most of us are here in Tennessee. now. Isaac Bird's in Florida, Yancey Thigpen's in Charlotte, but most of us, and Willie Davis is in Houston, but for the most part, most of us are here.
Oh, nice, man. That's good to have like that bond, especially when you guys get drafted the same class. I know, like you said, you talking about like similarity role and stuff like that, but just like that's a really good bond, and that's something that no one can ever take away from you guys, because you guys experience something
Yeah.
that not a lot of people go through. I mean, just to get to the NFL level, that and again, a lot of people are what they call keyboard warriors and stuff. They like to put their own opinion and think this and that, and like you have no idea what these guys go through. So again,
Yeah.
all respect to you, man, and that.
Yeah, I've been dealing with the keyboard warriors for years, man. And I get it. I mean, you look at our careers, and I'm going back to the whole Randy Moss comparison, and my life is always going to be synonymous with his, and I get it, and that comes with being drafted first. But circumstances were what they were, and I came to a team where you had a virgin quarterback who was still learning the game of NFL. He was more at that time. He wasn't the Air McNair that we saw at Alcorn State. He was more of a manager they wanted him to be. Just hand the ball off and dump off to Frank Wycheck. It took for a couple of coordinators, Heimerdinger and things like that, to say, man, this is a player, and let him open up, and you end up becoming an MVP of the league. Yeah. Once they got more comfortable with him. And again, our role as receivers, we were blocking, and you might get 4 or 5 opportunities a game. You got to make the most of those opportunities. And not to say Moss wouldn't have gotten more opportunities, but it would have been a different field than when he went to the offense he went to in Minnesota, which was more wide open and more suited for his skill set. And he made the most of it, and he showed just the beauty of his talent, how talented he was, and they just kept emphasizing his talent, and he just kept relishing those opportunities and making play after play. And he is who he is, and he's the Hall of Famer that he is. And so, not that I say I was going to do the same thing, because again, we got different skill sets for a reason. But you never know.
Yep, definitely. I mean, you think now, looking at the wide receiver situation with say like AJ Brown and you said you and Randy Moss will always have that where I know they didn't get, obviously it was a different draft class, different, but the situation wise, almost it feels like Burks has to kind of fill in that shadow of an AJ Brown. Do you think that that's gonna kind of be with him for as long as he is with the Tennessee Titans as of right now?
Yeah, that's great point, great question. I truly believe that, and I think he's gonna have to find that balance of being himself and not trying to be AJ Brown, and be comfortable in his own skin. I think where he's going to have to really navigate that is when people start, if he's not as productive as AJ Brown was, as quick as AJ Brown was, how does he navigate that? Is he able to process that and not have those mental breakdowns thinking, oh my gosh, I got to do extra? He just got to be within himself. And that's the one thing I was telling him, man, just be within yourself. Don't try to be AJ Brown. And I would encourage the Titans, don't try to make him AJ Brown. Don't run the same schemes, patterns that you do AJ Brown, assuming he's going to be similar. They got similar body styles and things of that nature, but AJ Brown's a different type of talent. He's got great hip mobility, gets in and out his cuts very well. He's great run after the catch. Burks he's a chain mover. He's more of a bigger body, more thicker guy. Get the ball in between him and the DB, break tackles and go. And he just got a different skill set from my perspective. And I think he can be a very good, productive receiver. Will he be as dynamic as AJ Brown? Right now, that remains to be seen. But I don't see the same sort of skill set that I saw in AJ Brown. But shoot, he could prove me wrong. But AJ Brown was pretty good. He was the best receiver drafted in this city for a reason.
Yep.
And I'm saying that was a first round pick. So I love AJ Brown's game.
Yep, definitely. I think one of the things that probably got to him, again, a younger player, is kind of like the social media, all that could play a really big, heavy part, especially players nowadays, right? Social media wasn't big back in the day, but now it's like part of your life. It's part of everyone's life, even with the media and stuff. So getting that attention and getting to, I guess, tweet things and then delete things and people see it and then getting upset. Like it played a big part too. So I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, we'll see what happens. Um, through training camp, it's nice to see what he's doing right now, but it's only day 2 of training camp. You can't
Yeah.
like freaking
No
out.
pads on yet.
Exactly. Yeah. Like okay, like it's cool and stuff, but let's pump the brakes. But again, let's be optimistic, right?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Me too.
I'm interested to see how they use him. I think he definitely has a skill set that works well in the National Football League. Anquan Bolden kind of comes to mind. Not a very burner, but he put that ball in his hands. He's physical. He's gonna make some plays for you. He's probably a one-cut guy more so than a two-cut guy. What I mean by that, he's not gonna double move you. He's gonna run a curl and put his big body in front of you. Now I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I saw him. But we'll see.
Definitely. Now let's talk about some Titans games. All right. Like I said, there's a couple of questions that people had in the back.
Okay.
I'll probably so it says the remaining meeting says it's gonna end in 5 minutes. If it cuts out, what I'm gonna do is just I'll just send you the link again so we can. I don't know why it gave me, I guess, a certain amount of time. Again, it's haven't done Zoom in a while, so just letting you know. Okay, is that all right?
Absolutely.
All right, man. So talking about the Tennessee Titans team, Jeff Fisher, how was getting coached by Jeff Fisher? How was your relationship with him?
Jeff was cool, man. In a lot of respects, I didn't have like I'm not the quarterback, right? My relationship with him is a little different. It's more player coach than probably what your quarterback or your captains are. Bruce Matthews had his ear, and I mean him and Bruce Daniel were probably in the same draft. I think I don't even know. Like he was a younger head coach at the time, and but one thing I always liked about Jeff was, and I got this early on. He's a former player, and he got it. He got when to push us. He got when to back off, when to rest us. He understood that. He understood the psyche of a professional athlete, and I always knew he was going to take care of us at the end of the day. And that's one thing you can always say about Jeff. He knew how to take care of his players. Now, I don't know what happened is end of his tenure here with the group he had and why he was and eventually let go or left, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you from my time frame, he did enough. He got his team. And again, we were veteran led, and that may have helped him. He didn't have to do some of the extra stuff, but that was what I always appreciated about it.
Definitely. And if you can recall that year, your first year playing the NFL, is there a game that that brings back memories or anything that are like, man, yeah, I remember this because of this play, that play, anything like that, or you're just your first NFL snap at all?
Yeah, the time of that I tend to always go back to is my first career start and my first career touchdown was against Cincinnati Bengals in Vanderbilt Stadium. I wasn't even completely healthy. My hip flexors had been hurting, had a sprained ankle and everything else, but I ended up my first start, 4 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. So I'm thinking, oh, this is easy. And then I got a touchdown the very next week against Steelers. I'm like, oh, okay, this, I'm going to be productive. And anyway, I ended up starting, I think, 9 games that year and started getting healthy, started getting my legs under me. And before you know it, right when I start catching my second win, because October, you do hit a wall. There's a rookie wall in October.
Okay.
Because you've been in mini camp, training camp. You played probably 10, 11 games of an NFL season, maybe not even that many. It's maybe like closer to 6, 7 games into the NFL season. And by that time, you've already played a college season. And that's how long you've been in it.
I get you.
And because you played 4 preseason games plus that. And but by the time I started getting my second win, the season was ending. But that was the beauty of it was I understood how to prepare going into my second year and getting ready. And we, of course, we went to Super Bowl that year. But yeah, my first start against Cincinnati Bengals, definitely. I think about that. If I think about that time in Vanderbilt Stadium, my rookie year, that's the game that comes to mind.
Sounds good. All right. So
And one I just thought about it.
let's
My
hear it.
first time in Green Bay, it was Reggie White's last home game. It was snowing. It was the frozen tundra. It was Brett Favre and Reggie White and Dorsey Levens. And,
Look at that.
oh, yeah. All the guys I watched on TV, that one was another special one. Absolutely.
So that's man. You threw out some legend names. Like that's the crazy part. Like imagine just you watch them, you grew up watching these, and now you're on the same field with them. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was one of the things. It's hard for me not to. It was hard for me not to fanboy some of them. When I got towards the end of my career, I started caring less about the aspect of I might not ever see Emmitt Smith again. I loved Emmitt Smith. I grew up a Cowboys fan, so he was with the Cardinals at the time. I got him signed my football. When Jerry Rice was with the Raiders, and I was at the end of my career, I was like, man, I might not ever run into Jerry again. I need to get him signed my jersey. I didn't get it. I missed him, but I started when I got towards the end of my career and I had all the injuries. I said, man, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to stick around. People are going to think I can't play. So I started you know what? I need to get some of these autographs. People, I might never see them again, And so I started doing that towards the end of my career, but I only got a few, and it worked out for me.
Okay. So let's talk about that Super Bowl run.
Okay.
Obviously, we'll talk about the Super Bowl and stuff like that, but just leading up, the first game of the season throughout, how was the team feeling? Was there a different, set in the air? Did you guys have a feeling? How did that go about?
Well, I think it goes back to the year before, as we mentioned, my rookie year, we were 8-8. I think the 2 years prior to that, they were also 8-8. So the team has always just been on the cusp and just added a few pieces here and there, and they did it through the draft. You look at first-round picks from Steve to Eddie to Kenny Holmes, even before that, Brad Hopkins, Kenny Holmes, myself, and then Javon Curse. That was 5-6 years in a row. That was your first-round pick, and we all were pretty instrumental in that second year, that Super Bowl run. But Javon was that magic piece in a lot of respects. He created we already had a good defense. He just created another element on that defense that nobody else had, another skill set. And once we had that, we was a ball control offense. Eddie was going to get the rock 25, 30 times, sometimes more. And Frank was going to get the ball 7, 8 times, sometimes more. And we were going to ball control you and play a solid defense and just pound you. And that year, we started off and played Cincinnati, first game in the Delphia Coliseum, hot. It was super hot. And we had a late game victory. And then we just kept winning. We'd go win 3, lose 1, win 3, lose 1, win 3, lose 1. But that second game against Jacksonville, a team that was very good. Matter of fact, they only lost 2 games that year, 3 in the AFC Championship game. All 3 were against us. But that first one, when we went down there at Alltel Stadium, we beat them. That's when I felt like, at least from my perspective, somebody was like, man, we might be pretty good. We're going to be all right. And then we just, like I said, we just had a good rhythm. And we started playing well, winning at home. Our crowd was rocking. Man, it was just a good time, good feel. But it started with that first game against the Bengals, man. I just feel like the way we overcame adversity, the heat, and finding a way to win, I thought, okay, I think we got something.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. How much effect does actually a crowd have for players? Does it affect you as much as it affects maybe the quarterback? Does it? Because again, like you said, don't get me wrong, the crowds have been good of lately, but nothing was compared to back in the day when it was chaotic.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, man. It's hard to equate, but I'll say it like this. I'll give you an indoor and outdoor example. When we played in the AFC divisional round against the Colts, it was so loud that for both teams, but specifically for the Colts, because it's supposed to be loud for us, but for the Colts, that Peyton Manning had to go silent count because our fans were so loud. that's effective. You don't expect that at home. You expect to be able to do your checks and everything else at the line, be able to verbalize everything, so no miscommunication, no missed snap counts, none of that stuff. And even at home, in our time, for a 3-4 year stint, I don't know, maybe longer, we were voted the loudest outdoor stadium in the NFL. And we would get offensive linemen a false start. We get quarterbacks missing checks, time and delayed games, and everything else. So it absolutely has a big part. And I'm gonna tell you, there's times like even playing, you get that energy from the crowd, man. You can just feel it, man. It's just there's nothing like it, man. And that's, again, you hear those stories about guys, man, that it's hard to not have the roar of the crowd in a lot of respects, and guys have a hard time transitioning. That's what they're talking about, man. That whole feel of the crowd, the energy and the excitement, But this day and age of football was different from my perspective, and you don't know if some of the guys you talk to, is now it's so intermingled with home and away fans because people sell tickets online so much that they're like, I'm gonna go make a couple grand off these tickets to sell to the Bills fans, and I'll watch it home on TV, as opposed to when we were coming up, you went to the games. I'm gonna sell my ticket to the Steelers fans or whatever. Yeah, you went to the game, so the stadium was a lot louder. And I don't know if they feel the same in some of the places I've been, like Green Bay. It was all Green Bay fans, a couple Titan fans. You go to Dallas, it was all Cowboys fans and a couple of whoever. You go to Pittsburgh, it was Pittsburgh fans. But now the age of everybody moves around different communities. You don't necessarily grow up a diehard Steelers fan or diehard Tanks fan, and people are trying to make a quick buck. It's a little more blended, so you can be loud for either team, but it's not as loud collectively for the home teams. And that's my opinion. I could be wrong.
I mean, it's weird as growing up as a fan that you go through, obviously the Titans were, when I started going to Titan games, they weren't the greatest. So you kind of see that change in momentum every year. You see, the first game I went to was the Andrew Luck game, and Andrew Luck, I mean, it was a home game for the Tennessee Titans, but looked like a Colts game. Like there was I was like, what is happening? But as the years gone, and I used to go with my best friend he saw the change. He's like, whoa, you guys, like we have a crowd, like there's a lot of people. It's so I get you on that one, man. Let's go a little bit quicker because I don't want to take too much of your time. The Music City Miracle. Let's talk about that game. That ending of that game. What was the whole? I know someone asked the question. I'm probably gonna ask it for them. Is what was the whole game plan? Was it? What was the initial when they were gonna kick the ball off? What was the initial plan? Were you supposed to get some yardage and then go out of bounds, or what was your initial thought of the game plan?
Well, to your point, the idea of that is get what you can, get out of bounds, and then we decide what we do from there. That we're throwing to get a few more yards, get an opportunity to kick a field goal for the win, or get you a field goal position already, you can win. So I think I wasn't supposed to be a part of the play. Isaac Bird, who was was thrown in a position he was unfamiliar with, I think, as well. So going back, when they asked me to go on the field, I didn't know what they were talking about, but I had an idea of the play. I'd seen him work on it in practice, but earlier in the second half, I was cramping up. So I went in and got IV to get rehydrated. Well, Derek Mason, when I was in there, got injured or got a concussion, I think on a punt return. And so he ended up being out. He was the one kick returner. He had a great return against Jacksonville the week before and all that, or the very next week and everything. But his backup, this is the irony part, his backup was Anthony Dorsett Jr. Well, Anthony, AD, was cramping up and couldn't run.
Wow.
So that's how I even got thrown out there. They were like, Dyson, he was a kick returner. Get Dyson. And I could run, obviously. And so they called me and they were telling me the gist of the play. We're going to run home run, throw back, and everything going fast, get on the field. Frank said, hey, he's going to get the lateral. So I wasn't supposed to get the lateral. The lateral was supposed to go to Isaac Bird, who was the number one kick guy, who's in a position. He was unfamiliar too, but the ball blooped up. He came up to field it. Well, and then Lorenzo Neal got it, so now he's out of position, and I just last man standing. And so it just worked out, man. I get a lot of credit, and I get it. It's because I scored. But, man, truth be told, I had the easiest job. I just had to run. I had to use my gift as run. And wasn't nobody going to catch me. I knew that, but it was it, man. I just had to run. The easiest job. The guys that around me, they made it work. They did their jobs. They had practiced it. But here I am. I get to talk about it because I scored. But them guys did the job, man.
And how was that once you caught the ball and you ran and you saw that, I mean, you were by yourself. How was that feeling, seeing everyone go nuts? Because, man, that to this day, man, that gives everyone goosebumps. You don't even have to be a Titans fan. That's just a crazy play.
Yeah. During the time, you've probably heard players say this. You don't hear a thing. Mm-hmm. And then once the headphones come back off your ears, and it's just explosion, man. It was so loud in there. It was crazy. The energy going in there, man. It was just phenomenal. I don't know how big of a deal it was at the time. Obviously, I know it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But again, we're talking about it 20 some odd years later now too. So that tells you how big of a deal it was. Because I had other plays, obviously nothing to that magnitude. But again, we're talking about one of the most recognizable plays in NFL history. And that right there, man, it's almost indescribable because you talking about a stadium rocking. Like you feel like everything was about to break down. Like it was that loud, man. It was unbelievable. It was probably loudest I've ever outdoor stadium for sure ever been into. Now I will say playing in RCA Dome in Indianapolis was loud, but it just because it kept the noise in there. But outdoor wise, I don't think I've been anything close to that noise level it had that day.
Yeah, that's wild. And the crazy thing is you have, in my opinion, you have like the good highlights, like the good memories of Kevin Dyson, and then you have that just one bad memory. Right? That one. So it's like, but again, we got to the Super Bowl, right? We made it to the Super Bowl. We're, again, my buddies, again, they're Dolphin fans, and they like to, when they like to throw jokes, they'll send me the picture again of the stretch, the tackle, and I'm like, oh, so close, and I just give them the emoji finger.
And I'm Dolphin fans.
Yeah, Dolphin fans.
Have they had anything to root for since 1982 or 1972, whatever? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, hopefully, and he does watch this, so good. I'm glad he's watching. And Mario, that's for you. Yeah, so that they like to do that. Let's talk about that play and just what it came down to. And again, incredible game. Unfortunately, yard short. If you can elaborate a little bit, man.
Well, that goes to show you the irony in sports, right? There's a shows you the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of sports. That was a play that I was in the diagram of the play. I'm in the progression of the play. Mm-hmm. It happens just as you have it diagrammed. Like Frank Wycheck's #1 read, they pretty much had one on top of him, somewhere right underneath him, and I become the next primary target on that play, and I don't score. 3 weeks prior, I'm not even supposed to be on the field. It doesn't happen how it's supposed to. That's not how it was diagrammed, and yet I scored. And it just goes to show you just how finite the success is of football, specifically playoff football, and which way you can go, because everybody's good. And, that was a play we had run, and they played it like you thought. And had I maybe got my leg out of the grasp of Mike Jones' left hand, we might be having a different conversation. I might have been I was part 2 of the biggest plays in for history, but I mean, from a different standpoint, I had potentially been in an equalizing touchdown. And Jeff has said, he put on record, he wouldn't have gone for 2. He was going to go for the tie, and we had the momentum. They were tired. Yep. They did not want any more. Had we had another play, we would have scored anyway. I mean, not the same thing about the Rams. They won Super Bowl, but they were tired. Mm-hmm. They were tired. They literally were on fumes, and they had a gut check time and they made that final play.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, but it's, that's part of the game and stuff like that. So let's get away from the negative talk. Now, what you do now? You're a principal, correct?
Yeah, I am.
You went back. I think you got 2 masters, a doctorate. I mean, that's incredible. Like when you see that, when you hear that someone finishes off their NFL career and then goes back and finishes school and still has a second career. I mean, I still haven't even finished my career. Like that's amazing, man. That's again a well earned. I think one of the people that like I said I think about when they accomplish something like that is like Myron Rule. He played for the Titans and now he's doing what he's doing and what you're doing. That's amazing. How is it being a principal, man? How's that feeling?
Oh man, I love it, man. I've grown as a person, as an individual into this role. It's got me. I'm naturally more of an introvert. Not really. I get along with everybody great, but I keep to myself.
Yep.
Never wanted to really search and reach out for the limelight, but this has put me up front a lot more. I've had to be the face of the school, be the face of the franchise, if you will, which I hadn't been accustomed to even when I played college ball. And I still the same way, and I was the same way then. It's about all of us. Just because I'm supposed to be the best player on the team doesn't mean this guy doesn't shine as well, right?
Yep.
And so that's it's helped me grow as an individual. And I think when I first stopped playing football and I retired, and you're trying to figure out what you're gonna do on this side of life, natural thing was to coach. That seemed to be the whole natural transition. I think a lot of guys had that same mindset. But what end and what level? I could have pursued college professional, but was I about that life? I don't know. I did it at high school level. I didn't do it at college pro level. But when you get to those levels, you go where the job is. You might be in New York 1 year, and then year 2 you're in LA. 2, 3, 4 you're still in LA, but year 5 your coach gets fired, so now you got to go to Knoxville. So you're in Knoxville for 1 year, and then you get a job offered, and you go to Wisconsin. Then you might be there for 2, 3 years. Then you might go to Florida or back to It's just I didn't know if I was about that life. I don't know. Maybe I could have been, but something in me wanted to be more stable, more stationary. I had my last few years in the league. I went from Tennessee to Carolina, played with them. Then I went from Carolina to San Diego, and played with them or then got released. And then I went from there to Washington and got released. And it was just, I just never could necessarily find that next fit for me. And so that's just kind of how my career ended. And so with that, I had to transition into something. Coaching was kind of a natural fit for me, the coach, but I had to do something. I couldn't just sit at home for the next 20 years or so. And so I built myself up, and like I said, the phrase I've grown to use is I wanted to be qualified, so I was justified. And I knew people will give me opportunities because of my name, but when I got there, I had to make the most of it and do it right and know what I was doing. And so I went back to school and things of that nature, and it worked out. It's when I ended up getting my doctorate.
That's amazing, man. That's inspiring, man. That's like I said, it's never too late, right? It's never too late.
Right.
Do
Absolutely.
what you want, man. That's awesome. I credit to you because, like I said, I'm not even done. But all right. Towards the end of the show, I usually get a couple questions that the fans want to get them engaged and stuff. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. Again, these are people from Twitter, from Instagram, everything for social media platform. And they just wanted to ask you a couple questions. Some of them we might have answered. So if anything, you just, kind of skip over it. But Kat wants to know, in what ways did playing college and professional football prepare him to be a school principal?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I appreciate that one. Man, it's interestingly enough, um, in the school system I work in, a vast majority of the principals have been former athletes. So besides going to the NFL or anything like that, there's a lot that comes with being an athlete and playing a team sport, right? You know how to collaborate, you know how to be a part of a team, leadership skills, resiliency. I don't get rattled, because I've been in high pressure situations before, um, conflict resolution. There's so many things that come with being a part of the team aspect that translate into the corporate world or education, and you just try to you kind of take all of that stuff in and utilize it to the best you can in your skill set and mold it to your personality. So that's a great question. I think absolutely what I used to do as far as an athlete is absolutely a part of my everyday as a principal.
Gosh, yeah. Again, thanks, Kat, for that question. I mean, she's a big fan and stuff like that. We have the Power Hour. He wants to know, who was the one corner you wanted to play your best game against?
Oh man, golly, I don't even get to name one.
You can name 2 or 3 if you want. If you
Man,
want,
I just tell you, and it's hard to name one. Charles Woodson would be
okay.
the one that comes to mind. We drafted together, watched him on TV, Heisman Trophy winner, obviously. So, if you can make a name against him,
Yeah, you're
because he
good,
had
yeah.
the reputation, you're good. But, I mean, I saw some good ones, man. I saw Eric Allen, Charles Woodson, Aaron Glenn, Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey, Aeneas Williams, Troy Vincent, Bobby Taylor, Samari Roll, Chris McAllister. Oh my God, Fred Smoot. I'm trying to, man, Sean Springs. Oh God, man. I went against some guys, man. There was some dudes back then. And not that these corners not good now. I'm not saying that, because they got some very good corners now. But I went against some dudes, man. They can play. They can
Well,
play.
at least now you can say that, right? You
Yeah.
can say that. That's awesome. Again, thanks for the Power Hour. Thank you for that question. Here's one that I haven't mentioned, we haven't talked about. Well, we talked about, but not the second part. Paris Sharkey wants to know, which moment was your favorite? Music City Miracle or the game you and your brother both scored a touchdown? Again, your brother played with the Tennessee Titans as well, and I was trying to think as well, doing some research and stuff, like what other brothers, because I know there's a lot of brothers in the NFL but play at different teams. Devin McCourty and Jason McCourty are the only ones that kind of pop up the like real quick, but other than that, I don't know if there's any other ones that actually played on team. So what do you think? Is the Music Miracle, or is you and your brother scoring a touchdown together?
Man, that's another great question, by the way, and that's the first time I've ever been asked that. And that's to your point. Me and my brother have NFL record it'll probably never be equalized or duplicated. I mean, we're the first brother tandem to ever have an interception and reception in the same game, interception for a touchdown and reception for a touchdown in the same game. Like, that's not going to happen again. Yeah. So, and to be honest, to your point, like the McCourty brothers or the Barber brothers or Marino brothers or anything like that, for the most part, they took advantage of being brothers and being in the NFL, which is hard enough. Me and my brother, again, I'm naturally introverted, and I think he is as well. We didn't take time to utilize and capitalize on our opportunities to being brothers on the same team in this community. Like, we should have been doing stuff together and doing stuff that set us up for after playing ball. So, man, to go back to that question, that's very profound. I've never been asked that. So, dang, that's hard, because Music City Miracle gives me opportunities to talk to people like you and then still be relevant. But the fact that my baby brother was on the field with me playing, and I got to watch him, and then we have complementary plays that will never be duplicated again. Man, that's hard, man. Yeah, but I'd have to go with the Music City Miracle just because the magnitude of it, playoffs. It put me on the map. Again, a lot of people don't even know about the interception thing. That's more personal than it is externally known. So I definitely got it. I think I think I'm gonna go with Museum Miracle.
Okay.
No definite about that. I'm just gonna say I think that's one.
All right. The last question we have from Haley said 2 master's degrees, a doctorate, and after his football career is an amazing accomplishment. What kept him motivated to pursue these degrees after football? What made him go into education?
Great questions. So as I said, when I got done playing, I thought about coaching, and I settled in on secondary education. And then, like I said, I kind of wanted to make sure I was qualified, so I was justified, because I knew opportunities would come and doors would open for me just because I played ball. So I went back, and I thought I wanted to be, if I was going to stay in education, as far as secondary education, I was going to be an athletic director and a coach. So I wanted to go to school to learn how to be a leader in academics. So I went back to school, got a master's in leadership administration. Well, I started my career in private school. So that's what I thought I was going to be, in a private school. I didn't necessarily know anything or want to work in public school. Well, a buddy of mine was a principal at a public school, and he said, "Hey, I know you would think about being an athletic director. My athletic director is leaving. He's going to another school, and I'm in a public school, but you got a teach certification." I said, "Don't." So we worked it out. I got an alternate license. I went back and got my second master's in education and teaching education, so I can teach in public school, but work as I taught PE, taught weights, and I was athletic director of the school. So that's why I ended up with 2 masters. Well, my plan was to get my first master's, then go get my doctorate. Well, after I got my second master's, I was like, I'm done with school. I'm good. I had been in school, let's see, 3, 4, almost 5 straight years. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. Well, I was a head coach at that school after a while, and I got approached because somebody had known me, was in one of my master's classes, had been approached about a job, and he said, "Who do you know anybody?" I said, "Well, call Kevin Dyson. He would be great for that." And so he contacted me, and it was a time of year, having a hangover, just lost in the playoffs, and I was just like, man, do I really want to just grind again? And he caught me at a good time. Had he waited another month, I'd probably still be coaching high school ball. And I left. I took an administrative job. Well, I visited this thing in Florida. It was a thing with the NFL and coaches, and we're talking about misogyny and things of that nature in sports. And while there, one of the NFL representatives said, "Man, I see you got 2 master's degrees. Did we pay for that?" And I'm like, "Nah, you had to pay for that. I paid for those." He said, "Well, you ought to see about getting reimbursed. We will pay for extended education for players." I'm like, "I haven't played in a while." I said, "Yeah, So I called. So eventually I ended up calling the NFLPA, asking them like, "Hey, I got 2 master's degrees. Do you do reimbursement?" So they looked at my information and said, "Well, you're outside the statute of limitation for reimbursement, but you can call the NFL Trust." He said, "I don't even know what's the NFL Trust." I had no idea what it was. They've done a better job advertising now. More former players are aware of it now, but back then, I'm talking 4 years ago now, maybe I guess 6 years ago now. And so I guess it's kind of genesis of the program. I called them, and they said the same thing. You're outside statute of limitation. However, you can apply for a grant if you ever want to extend your education again. So I said, okay. So I looked up what it costs to get your doctorate at a school. I got my master's, both master's degrees. I filled out the application and information for the grant, and they essentially were going to pay for 100%. It wasn't quite 100, but dang near 100% of my tuition and things for my doctorate. I didn't have an excuse other than I wasn't going to do it because they were paying for it.
Yeah.
So I got the grant, and I challenged myself, man. It was one of the hardest things I've ever do personally, because I never considered myself a smart kid or academic kid. I didn't have bad grades. I did enough school to get enough grades so I could play. Yeah, just to get by. I get a 3.3, 3.4, but I wasn't like I didn't take honors classes or anything like that. But anyway, so I went back because basically the NFL Trust paid for my doctorate, and here I am. And so that's a long way to tell you how I got to that journey, man. It was happenstance in a lot of respects, and I'm so happy I did, man. That is something that helped me grow a lot as an individual, because you can't take that away. They took the NFL away from me. I didn't get to go out on my own terms, but getting my doctorate, being Dr. Dyson now, you can't take that away. And I've I've said it's one of my greatest personal accomplishments in my life. And not that being drafted in the first round isn't, because it is, and it's definitely appreciative of it. But this right here, I never thought I could do it. But I recognized a lot of same things that made me a first round draft pick or a successful athlete. I applied to school, and that's why I was able to achieve that. And I wish somebody would have told me that years later, because the school would have been a lot easier had somebody told me that. Just persevere, work hard, and have motivation to get things done. You'd been all right. But I learned this into my 30s, 40s, I should say.
Bro.
Yeah, and now here I am, Dr. Dyson, and that's kind of cool, man, if I'm being honest with you. So, but I appreciate that question because, it is a lot of work, it's a lot of school, and it wasn't intentional, but it worked itself out.
Well, Dr. Dyson, let me not take any more of your time. I do appreciate you coming on and talking, your career. I mean, like you said, you're a Titans legend in all Titan Nation's eyes. Amazing person, just inspirational person as well. And, thank you so much for, like I said, coming on, man. I do appreciate it. I know time is a valuable thing, and it's not to be taken lightly, but bless you, bro, and I hope you have a good one, man. I do appreciate it.
Man, appreciate you having me, brother. Thank you, man. Have fun.
Hey, have a good one.